We continue now at the top of Daf79b Meseches Yoma. This is Yoma Daf 79b. The Gemara now makes an inference from this Mishnah in Sukkah. So the Gemara says, Ha-kibetza boy Sukkah. It talked about the fact that less than a kibetza, it's not a requirement to eat in the Sukkah. So if you eat the amount of an egg or more, so then you do require a Sukkah. And Rashi over here says, Ha-kibetza boy Sukkah. Al moshte kosavos de amrun la'el lo shahalacha kain pchusos hein mikabetza. So the Gemara had quoted the Mishnah previously, which said that if you have 2 kosavos, it's not really obligated in Sukkah. And now we're saying that if you have a kibetza, that is obligated in Sukkah. So one thing you see very clearly, 2 kosavos, 2 dates, are less than a kibetza. So that much we know. So that's now the Gemara finishes its question. Now, if you think that a large date is larger than a kibetza, so hashta shtei kosavos below garinan lo have a kibetza. When you have 2 dates that don't have pits, that does not even equal a kibetza. That we've just established based on the Mishnah in Sukkah that is less than a kibetza. So therefore, koseves hagasa v'garinasa. You think if you have a large date with its pit, mi have a yisera mi kibetza. You think that's more than a kibetza. That contradicts what we said on the previous Amud. On the previous Amud, we said the koseves hagasa v'garinasa we said is larger than a kibetza. That doesn't seem to make sense because if 2 kosavos are smaller than a kibetza, so a koseves hagasa and its pit should not be larger than a kibetza. And so the Gemara says, Amar Rabbi Yirmiyah says, yes, shtei kosavos below garinasa lo have a kibetza. If you would have 2 dates but not include the pit, that's not going to be the size of a kibetza of an egg. But koseves hagasa v'garinasa. But if you have a koseves hagasa, large date plus the pit, have a yisera mi kibetza. That's actually going to be more than a kibetza. And the Gemara continues. Amar Rapapa says, Hainu da'amri inchi. That's what people say. Trei kavi de tamri. If you have 2 kav of dates, chad kava de kashaisos riach. You have more than a kav of pits, meaning the volume of the pit is actually more than the volume of the fruit itself. And the Gemara continues with another answer to the question from Meseches Sukkah. Rava says, Hasam hainu time over there. What's the reason why when you had 2 dates you didn't have to eat in the sukkah? It has nothing to do with the amount. Mishum dahavale piri. The real reason is because it's fruit. Upiri lo bo sukkah. The halach is that fruit does not require a sukkah, so it very well could be that the 2 dates are more than the shear of a kibetza, more than the shear of an egg, and it still does not require sukkah because it is fruit. And so the Gemara asks on this answer, Meisve, they ask the following question. Omar Rebbe said, Kishayinu lomdim Torah etzel Rebbe Lozer ben Shamua, when we were learning Torah by Rebbe Lozer ben Shamua, Heviu lefanenu te'enim va'anovim va'achalnu achilas arai chutz l'sukkah. So they brought in front of us figs and grapes, and we ate them in a temporary manner as a snack outside of the sukkah. So we make the following inference. Achilas arai in, achilas kevalo. Apparently, when it comes to fruit, you can eat it as a snack. But if you eat it as a meal, then it is a problem to eat it outside of the sukkah. In other words, there are situations where fruit requires the sukkah. So the Gemara says, no, ema acholnum ki achilas arai chutz l'sukkah. What that means to say over there, it doesn't mean to say that we ate it in a temporary fashion. It means that fruit by definition is always considered a snack. It's always considered a temporary kind of eating, and that's why it's eaten outside of the sukkah. If you want, I could say another answer. Acholnum achilas keva v'achalnu pas achilas arai bahadayu chutz l'sukkah. What it means to say is we ate them as a meal, and fruit never requires a sukkah. And then together with that, we actually did eat some bread, but we ate the bread as a snack, and therefore we were able to eat it outside of the sukkah. And the Gemara continues, Lema Messiah, let's say a support for this idea that fruits do not require sukkah. The Mishnah says, Lefikach im hishlim b'mine targima yotza. Rabbi Eliezer's opinion over there, Meseches Sukkah, is that a person is obligated to eat 14 meals in the sukkah. So it says in the Mishnah that if you complete the 14 meals with mine targima, Rashi says mine targima is lifton, which is foods that accompany bread. So then you're yotzei. So the Gemara says, Visalka daitach piri bo sukkah. If you think that fruits require sukkah, lisni peiros. Why do you say mine targima? Just say peiros. If you have fruits, that completes your 14 meals that you're obligated to eat in the sukkah. So the Gemara says, my mine targima. No, what does it mean over here when it says mine targima? Peiros, it means fruit. Sometimes mine targima can mean fruit as well. If you want, I could say another answer. Biasra de lo shlichi piri. We're talking about an area where there aren't a lot of fruits, and therefore the Mishnah says mine targima, but ena chinami. If it was an area with fruits, you can use fruits as well. And the Gemara continues, Rav Zvid Omar, Rav Zvid says, Koseves Hagasa Sha'amru, when we talk about a large date on Yom Kippur, Chaseira Mikabetza. He disagrees with what we said before, and he says the Koseves Hagasa is actually less than the shear of a Kibetza. The Tanan, as we learned in the Mishnah, Beishamai Omrim So'or Bekazayis Chametz Bechoseves. Beishamai's opinion when it comes to Pesach is that a So'or, the amount of So'or that you're over on Bal Yera, Bal Yematze, of having So'or on Pesach is a Kazayis, and the amount of Chametz that you transgress Bal Yera, Bal Yematze is a Koseves, is a date. But we ask on that, my taima de Beishamai. What is the reason of Beishamai? Where does he get these shiurim? And the reason is as follows: Nichtov rachmon chametz v'lo boy saor. Beishamai reason that the Torah could just write chametz and you don't need to write saor. V'ana mina, and I would say as follows: Uma chametz shein chimutzo kasha aser bekazayis. If when it comes to chametz, where the ability for that to leaven is not so strong, that's aser by kazayis. So saor shechimutzo kasha, saor which has leavening properties that are stronger, lo kol shekain, certainly it's going to be aser bekazayis. Midapolginu rachmana limdalach shiro shalzeh lo shiro shalzeh. So Beishamai reasons from the fact that we identify chametz and saor separately, they must have different shiurim. Saor bekazayis v'chametz bechoseves. Saor, which again is stronger, that's aser at the shir of a kazayis, and chametz is aser in bal yera bal yimatzeh at the shir of a koseves, at the shir of a date. And so now the Gemara brings its proof. If you think that a koseves hagasa, a large date, is bigger than an egg, so michli, let's analyze this. All Beis Shammai is doing is looking for the shear that's the next level up, larger than a kazayis. So listen to kabetza, so they should just choose a kabetza, right? If it comes out that a koseves hagasa is larger, so choose the next level up. Don't choose koseves hagasa. Say that when it comes to saor, in that situation, the amount is going to be a kabetza. So the Gemara says, and even if you say it's the same exact amount, let's say a koseves hagasa and a kabetza are identical, nisni kabetza, you should still say kabetza because that's the more commonly used shear. Elalav shvamina koseves pechusa mi kabetza. So you see, it must be a koseves is less than a kabetza, and that's why Beis Shammai chose the next level shear, which is going to be a koseves. So the Gemara says not necessarily a proof. Mimai, how do you know that? Dil maliola memelach koseves hagasa shamru yiseir mi kabetza. Maybe really a koseves hagasa is larger than a kabetza, but hastama kabetza. But a regular koseves, they didn't say gasa. A regular koseves is the same size as a kabetza. Vinami ki adodinenu v'chadaminayu nakat. And even if they are the same exact shear, you can choose either one's no proof. He decided to choose a koseves. Could have chosen to identify kabetza. It's the same thing. It's no proof. So the Gemara instead brings a different proof. Ela mehacha, rather the proof is from here. Ad kama mizamnin, it talks about how much do you have to eat in order to make a zimun when it comes to in order to make this birchas hamazon, to bench. So ad kazayis divrei Rabbi Meir. Rabbi Meir says the amount is you have to eat a kazayis, then you're chayiv to bench. Rabbi Yehuda says ad kabetza, the shear is a kabetza. If you eat an egg amount, then you're chayiv again in the bracha achrona in benching on the bread. So b'maiko miflagi, what's the machlokas over here between Rabbi Meir and Rabbi Yehuda? Rabbi Meir savar v'yachalta zu achila v'savata zu shasiya. Rabbi Meir says v'yachalta simply means eating, v'savata means drinking, v'achila b'kazayis, and the word achila means a kazayis. So you have to eat a kazayis, that's the amount you have to bench. Rabbi Yehuda says v'yachalta v'savata, we put the two words together. V'yachalta v'savata means achila sheyesh basvi, in order to be chayiv in benching, so then you have to have enough that it satisfies you. How much satisfies a person? A kabetza. So now the Gemara brings its proof. Now, if a koseves hagasa is larger than a kabetza, if a kabetza satisfies a person, you don't think it settles the person's mind? In other words, why is the amount on Yom Kippur, why is the shir a koseves hagasa? The shir should be a kabetza, because a kabetza certainly satisfies a person's mind if it makes a person full, if it satiates a person. So you see what? That really a koseves hagasa is less than a kabetza. Kabetza mesava, when it comes to a kabetza, that satisfies a person, that makes a person full. Kechoseves meisvadaite, but when it comes to a koseves, that just settles the person's mind. And that explains the two shiurim. Again, koseves hagasa is less than a kabetza. And the Gemara continues, Tanya, we learned in a Brisa, Rebbe says, we'll continue with this discussion in the next video on Daf Pei Amud Aleph.